Everybody, it's Professor Lilly here in the corner, and sorry it's taken me so long to get to this introduction video. I had a little family emergency earlier in the week. I was hoping to get to it, and I have other classes on campus that I have to teach. But it's really important. This might take, I don't know, like half an hour to get through this, and it's important that you get through the whole thing because it's like going to the first day of class, and all the important things that the professor tells you about the class, and I'll try not to get too bogged down in anything but the most important details. Okay, so the main activity for the whole course is your blog. And as it says here in the syllabus, you have to, hopefully you've already set that up. And so that can be set up. And it's going to be a public blog that I'm going to read, but potentially your parents or friends from back home and other people, including some of the other students in your class when they do critiques of your blog, have to be able to access it. So rather than using a Moodle blog tool, it has to be a public blog website. So, and as I said, in the syllabus, and also right here, there are several options for that in terms of WordPress, Tumblr, what else? Blogger, Squarespace, things like Squarespace and Wix. And again, all of these are available for free. If you want to pay to have a domain name, which is like jonathanlilly.net or something like that, you can pay to do that, but you can get it for free, and then it'll just auto generate a domain name, a URL. And things like Squarespace and Wix can be set up to act like blogs. Which basically means your most recent post just goes to the top, which makes it easier, and it also archives the other posts really easy for people to find. So it's up to you, and that's something you should be doing this week to set that up, because as it says here in the important deadlines, the first blog post is due September 14th. And the next thing, and I'm going to change this actually, so I'm going to get into VoiceThread real quick, and I've decided to change that to September 14th as well for introducing yourself to your discussion group in VoiceThread, and I'll tell you why I'm going to postpone it. So both those are going to be due a week from today, September 14th. There's some other deadlines as well, and what I'll do in terms of reminding you. I know that you all have really busy schedules, and a lot of you trying to get do some traveling within your country or get to nearby countries and see what they're like. Take advantage of this opportunity, which is great, but which makes your schedule a lot more busy. So every either Sunday, Monday, maybe at the latest Tuesday of every week, I will be sending you an email reminding you what you're supposed to be doing. And periodically, there will be a video like this when I just describe something that's maybe a little bit more in depth, that would benefit for having you see me discuss it and describe what you need to do, as opposed to just reading about it on the website. So we have a little redundancy there, which is useful. And let's see. So so those deadlines would be, for example, for the first 6 blog articles. You need to have 14 total by the end of the semester. Note that here December 10th is the date for all work to be turned in. So anything after that will not be considered in your grade. Won't even be considered late, but will be considered as if it was never done. The final project, and I'll talk about that again. And then for November 5th, the deadline for blog critiques. Again, I'll describe that in more detail as well. So not too many, okay? There's a few, but the course is intentionally designed, recognizing that you all are abroad and have a variety of very busy schedules and have your own schedules for your schools abroad and travel. So it has to be done, on your own time. So you will have to do work every week, and you will have to pay attention to the deadlines and decide, okay, well, when can I squeeze in this work for travel reporting? With that in mind, even though the first 6 of the blogs are due, and that's just to encourage you to keep kind of pace, right? Because I don't want you to say, oh, they're all just due at the end, and then you might not be writing like your second or third or fourth blog post until December, and it just doesn't make sense that way, because you should be writing like the day of or the day after whatever event or thing you want to write about, right? Because it's recent in your memory, so you can't. And then if you waited until December to do all these, then it would just be really hard to come up with topics, because you would be thinking, about all the, you can only probably do so many things in a day that you would want to write about. And most of your countries, right now they're not in Australia, but in Europe, most of you are in Europe, and obviously we're into the summer now and getting into fall activities, and a lot of the cultures and cities and have different things going on in summer, fall, and winter, which is some of the things you want to write about. So the deadline for the 6 blog critiques is just to keep you pace, and also to make sure that there's something for the critiquers to actually read on your blog and then talk about. And then the blog critiques are due in early November, so that they can critique your blog, and then you can take that feedback and make it better, or at least consider it. And then everything else is due at the end. There's one assignment, I'm not going to talk much about it, that's also just due at the end, and that's the writing exercises. And they're described in detail, and basically there's 10 kind of exercises that are like going to a place and describing it. My video just froze up there. And the writing exercises are just designed to get you thinking, get you practice. Kind of like if you were wanted to get your basketball game better, then you might your coach might tell you, well, all right, today I want you just to spend a whole hour shooting jump shots, and tomorrow I just want you to work on layups, and then the next day I want you to go 1-1 with choose someone of your skill or someone who's better than you, and play one-on-one against them for an hour. And then when you go home tonight, I want you to do 500 dribbles. I mean, just things like that. And all those things in different ways will make your basketball game better, right? So that's what the exercises are about. So in terms of me in this course, and it kind of gets into that. So I taught the course for the first time last fall, and I taught 2 sections. Right now I am teaching 2 sections, but they each have their own Moodle site. And I learned a lot. It was well designed. It was designed by Elliot King, who used to be the chair, and there were a couple other people who taught it over the years. And of course, every instructor kind of makes their own tweaks. So after I taught it the first time, probably the biggest feedback I got from students was that they felt that there was a little bit too much busy work, and that made it just a little bit harder because they were so busy in their time, but also because they wanted to focus more on the blog writing. And by busy work, one of the things that they mentioned was the writing exercise, because there used to be 20 of them. So I pared that down to 10. So it's not busy work, but it's just trying to get you to think in different ways and observe things in different ways and push your writing a little bit, and more specific exercises as opposed to when you write a particular article, you might be using some of those skills that you develop in the exercises, or you might not. Okay, so those are due all in one Word document, submitted before or by the 10th of December at the very bottom here. Okay, so writing exercises, Dropbox. So that's due at the very end. And the only other thing in terms of this Dropbox, the second one here, is for the final project. I guess I'll talk about that. That's due on the 7th of December, so I'll also do it at the end. And as it says in this description and the syllabus, there's 2 options for the final project. So you can either do another blog post. So this would not be counted in the 14. So if you did 13 blog posts and thought, oh well, I'm doing the final project too, that counts. No, it doesn't. You would be dinged for not having enough of the required blog posts. So it's just a totally different assignment, but it comes in the form of, one of the options is do a blog post that goes into a lot more depth, and is about twice as long as the regular blog posts, and it really should kind of show like all the things that you've kind of learned and achieved, and be your best work to date, but just longer format writing too. So kind of like the difference between writing a news article, or maybe an article that's like a really brief description of a new restaurant for a newspaper that might be like 300 words, versus magazine length writing, which would be like 1,000 words or more. So a lot more depth, and you kind of, the challenge for you is to decide, well, how will I go into more depth? Will it be a lot more dialogue? Will it be a lot more historical research that you're doing on this particular place or topic? A lot more detailed description? How will you kind of challenge yourself to go into more depth of 1,000 words, which is a lot more. The typical blog post should be, I think you could do a decent one for about, I don't know, 300 words would be fine. So somewhere between 300 and 500 would probably be fine. It all depends on what the topic is. And when I'm reading them, if I read something and it just seems really, really brief and you're not going into much detail, and as a reader, I don't really get much about what the topic is, and then I look at it and see, well, I can tell that this is only like 200 words. So that's when you would be dinged on the grade, is where, as a reader, I can tell that there's just not much to the article. So it's not like a tweet. It's not, one of these micro type communications that we have. It's, fairly descriptive, and there's lots of different things you could be doing. And creativity is encouraged, right? So you could have a lot more dialogue. You can have a lot more focusing on observation, focusing on history, on facts. Probably most of them will be a mixture of that. And it all depends on what the topic is, in terms of what you're, and also maybe playing around with different styles of writing as well. And again, that's for the general blogs posts. Okay, so those are the two things that are due at the end. Just at the final day, the writing exercises, and just done whenever you think. I mean, ideally you would do them closer to the beginning, but you don't have to necessarily. And then the final. Okay, so let's talk about. Okay, so one thing that's really important for coming up, and there's a little bit of confusion. Okay, so the first thing, other than at the same time setting up your blog, is you need to sign up for a discussion group before doing the voice thread. And I apologize, because I recognize that that a couple of you already just kind of jumped, or it might have sounded like I wanted you to immediately just do the voice thread, but you need to do the voice thread in a very specific place, and I'm going to have set up a voice thread for each discussion group. And at this point, and this is where you do it, you sign up for the discussion group, and at this point only one group gray here, is full. So this is what the group would look like when it's full, and this is just telling me and yourselves which group am I in. So that's the only purpose here. So if I go to group green, I think that there's one spot left here in group green. In group metro, there's several spots left. I think, I don't think anyone just added the course, so there should be a perfect number, so that each group should be 16 people, so each group should be full. It doesn't matter what group you're in, it's just important in terms of having a small group. All right, so once you do that, I'm going to wait a little bit longer, but this weekend I'm going to start setting up the voice thread. So since group gray is full, I'm going to set that up. Okay, so and where that will show up is right in the small group activities area, and right under the group gray discussion forum, or maybe right above it, there will be a link, and it'll say group gray voice thread. All right, and then once these other ones fill up, I'll create the voice thread for each one. So just hold off. Again, I apologize, I know a couple of you, and the voice threads, these voice threads are supposed to be very informal. So like just you in your dorm room or you on a bench, and like 2 minutes long. So I hope you didn't waste too much time. And plus, since you already did it, it should be even easier, just talking about yourself. So it shouldn't be hard for those couple of you just to do it again, but just in the right place. And it's important to do it in the right place, so that your other group members can find it. So again, so under each one of these, there'll be a link, and it'll go to that specific voice thread. And here's what, and I have to kind of create some slides for it, which is another reason why to hold off. Is here's what it will look like. So the greet, and this is from this summer. I taught the course, one section of the course, and this summer for people who are back in the United States. A couple people who are abroad as well. It'll look like this. So, and the first thing, and there'll be several slides. So there'll be one slide, which is introduce yourself. And then there'll be a slide for each person. And those slides for each person will be for the critiques. And I'll get to that in a second. So the first thing, so over the course of the next week, again, it's due a week from today, you will come here and you will add your voice thread. And I've already added it here. Not sure if it will let me do it, but this is how you do it. If you haven't added something, you just hit this plus here at the bottom, and it will give you the couple options. It'll give you like I prefer the video option, and that's just so that we can see each other like you would in a normal classroom environment, right? So we see faces, and we're humans. Humans that are used to interacting with people with faces, and that's one of the things lacking in an online environment. So I prefer if you do that, do a video so you could see your fellow student. Maybe it's someone you saw on campus before, maybe not. It doesn't matter, but it just makes it more human to have a video. And don't feel, I mean, sometimes it might seem uncomfortable, but I mean, it's just the same as being in class. I mean, who knows, like maybe you just rolled out of bed, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is not being graded as a presentation, a research presentation in class, like that you've been working on a group assignment for a long time, when if you came in disheveled, maybe the professor would count off. That's not the case here. You're just introducing yourself like you would in class. And so let's see this one.
Area. I'm a junior at Loyola, and this summer I'll be taking this class and a Spanish class online, and I'm also going to be blogging for a local salon a few times.
Okay, so each one of these, and this one at the top was me just describing how to do it. So we have the 4 or the 3 people in this group here, and it says right here, talk about where you are in terms of like where you are abroad, and what school you're at, and what you're gonna granted this is from summer, so I'll change it up, and what some of the things you might be doing, and what some of your initial ideas are for what you might write about in your travel blog. And that's it. It's just introducing yourself. Okay, so then later on, when we do the, and I'll do another discussion about
hi everyone, so this
right,
is me doing
so I'll do another video more specifically about the critiques, but basically you're responsible for so there's 4 people including yourself in your group, so yourself doesn't count, so you have 3 people, students, who you would go to their blog. You would read a few of their articles that are up there in depth, and you would give them a critique. Okay, and here's and there will be a slide that will kind of give you some prompts for things you might want to talk about. And again, I will do a video talking about it more specifically. And then when you're ready, before the deadline for the critiques, you come to their page. So if you were a Molly's group, you would come to here, and you would just add your critique. Bam, right there. And then if you were...
So for each blog post, I tried to...
one other thing I forgot. I think I'll talk about this more. And I would also like you to add one on your own. So this is Jenna's, and she adds something. And she talked a little bit about, so she had a few blog posts at this point. She talked a little bit about the struggles that she had with writing, but also what she liked about it. And also a little bit about what she's looking for in a critique, like what kind of suggestions she wants. So ideally, you should do that first, so that when someone comes to give you a critique, they can watch that and they can kind of write some notes down and then give their critique. And the critique should also be a video critique. Anyway, so I'm going to go more in depth into that later. But for now, all you're going to be doing
Hello.
next week is this first one, okay? And then the other ones will happen later, but we'll have the place. The place will already be set up. So this is just introducing yourself next week to your group. All right. So then we have the discussion forums. Let's see. I'm just making sure I'm on the right one here. Okay. All right. So good. So Megan is in Group Gray, and she's already submitted. So the first thing to submit here is your blog URL. So how are the other people in your group going to know where to read your articles, right, for the critique? Well, here's how you tell them, and this is also where you tell me so that I can start going and reading your stuff. And here's her URL there. So it's easy to click on, make sure it's linked, and that's it. That's the first thing that you do. Once you set it up, once you know what discussion group you're in, go ahead and do. So eventually there should be 4 of these, 4 students who are all in Group Gray, and they're telling us what their URL are or is. So and then the discussion forums after that will be used for the reading assignments. Okay. So, and I'll probably maybe do a separate video because again I don't want this one to be too long about the reading assignments. Reading exercises is the correct term. It's described in the syllabus, so if you want to go back and look at it, there's several sites. So the reading exercises are basically I'm asking you to find examples of really good travel writing. Okay, not from in our class. Not to say there's not going to be great travel writing happening in our class, but who are kind of pro. I guess I call them pro-ams. Maybe some of them are totally amateurs, but they're seasoned travel writers doing travel writing. Here's 2 links. Excuse me, 2 websites who have those things. And see, I have a mistake here. So this should be 8. Excuse me. So you need to have do 8. So I'll change this up. I think I decided to again do a little bit less busy work. So you're going to do 8 summaries of 8 articles. The syllabus talks about a couple more websites. So if you look at these and you're not so sure, loving the travel writing, the syllabus gives a couple more that you might want to check out. And again, I don't expect this to happen all in one day. That would be a lot of reading because these tend to be long articles. So for each article, you write a summary, about a 150, 200 word summary. And I'm not really, it's almost better if it's more of a critique. So, I mean, it's great if you kind of summarize, but you're not summarizing it for me to know what the person was writing about because I can go read it, I'm more thinking or wanting you to be reflective. So, like, what about this writing did you really gravitate towards and you thought was powerful and like a good technique or good techniques that you witnessed here in this writing that you might want to emulate? Or what were things that you really were distracted by and you thought that were not useful for good travel writing? So I'm these should be more reflective and less summarizing, like maybe a couple sentences summarizing, and you can give some more in-depth summaries of the things that you thought were really great or a great technique or whatever to illustrate what you're talking about. But these should be a little bit more reflective. Excuse me. And then once you have, and you could post these summaries on your discussion forums at 4 at a time, or you could do all 8 of them at a time. Okay. So the idea is that once you're ready, once you have 4 done, or you've done all 8, then you would post them in a single, either a single blog post here with 4, or a single post with all 8. And so that your other group members kind of read them and see what you're thinking about. Maybe they read the same article, or maybe they just were kind of really interested in one of the techniques that you really liked about some of the reading. Excuse me again. My allergies are going crazy. Probably because I'm allergic to dogs, and yet we have a dog there sleeping right next to me with all of her fur. So once, and I do require you, or part of the assignment is to read through each other's summaries, to kind of also see what other people are seeing in good travel writing, in areas where you might agree or some new thoughts that you never occurred to you. And then I want you to respond to some of those as well. So in the description and the syllabus, and there's also a description in the on Moodle, it talks about 5 responses or engagements. Okay, so you have to summarize eight articles, and then you well, that's 5 or 3, 8 articles, and then 5 engagements. So an engagement is, let's say you read Megan post her summaries, and one thing that she talked about in one of the summaries really kind of stuck in your mind, and you kind of agreed and you want to talk about it more, and something that you recognized in your own writing. So these engagements, which engagement is more of a technical term or nominal term, and really, what it is in actuality for you all in Moodle is you're hitting reply. So you're replying to her post here, and you're saying something, and they don't have to be really long. It could be like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 sentences of talking about it. And now if she replies to your reply and she said, "Oh, Sally, thanks a lot for your reply. I totally agree, and that's what I was talking about," then that would count as one of Megan's engagements. So replying to someone's reply of your post counts as one engagement as well. So I'm just looking for you, and this is kind of like professors, when they're teaching online, have to find ways to kind of generate conversation on discussion fora like this. And so it's kind of a way to just try to, if you start dovetailing and having one good conversation that, where you reply several times, that would probably, be most of your 5 engagements. And that would be it. Okay, so I'll probably do a little bit more later on about the reading summaries exercise or assignment. But basically, that's what it is. It'll happen here in the discussion fora for each group. All right. And again, so each group would be 4 people. So you would be reading 3 people's reading summaries in the discussion forums here, and then responding. All right. And the reason why there is, let's see, do we have a date for it? Yeah. So this needs to happen. Send me an email if you feel like this is too soon. I guess it's like 2 weeks. I mean, I kind of would like it to happen sooner than later. If people email me, then I'll push it for 1 week. So like into October a little bit, because at this point it's that's I don't know, that's still 3 weeks away. But the idea is for you to be reading good travel writing now, so that when you're doing your own writing, you've kind of seen lots of examples of and also done some reflective thinking about what travel writing is all about. So that's why the October 1 deadline there. But also because if I didn't have a deadline, then, to be honest, a lot of students wouldn't even do it until December. And then it's hard. The problem is, then it's hard to do the engagements. It's hard to do and that's why I really would love it if some of you could start doing the reading engagements and start posting, not engagements, the reading summaries, start posting it next week. Especially if you have travel, like micro travel plans a lot later in the season, and you have more time right now at your university or city, just getting used to university and things like that, then I'd go ahead and do the reading summaries now, put them up there, and then that will encourage other people to do it, and then the engagements, the discussions can start to happen more quickly. It doesn't work so well if everybody is posting the summaries like the night before, and then there's not really time for the discussion to happen in like a natural type way. So like I said, you could start, even this weekend, next week, start doing these. And you can also do, either post all 8 in one discussion forum post, or you could break it up into 2. So do 4 and 4. Just don't do a separate discussion forum post for each one of your 8, because then it gets it makes the looking at the discussions a little bit harder when there's so many posts out there. Okay, well, I think that's all I want to say for now. I don't want to get too bogged down. One thing you might want to look at is down here, and this is how I will grade the different assignments. Oh, okay. So this is one thing I forgot to talk about. The first assignment will be your blog setup and first post. So I'll talk about in a second. The reading summaries, I'll click on that. So each one of these has a rubric with a certain number of points and describing how I would give like full points for this type of work. I would take, I get full points minus 1 or 2 points for this, kind of situation. So you should look at each one of those. I'm glad I looked at this though, because so the first one coming up is blog setup and first post. Okay, so let's say at this point you're really confused and you're like, I don't even know what what type of blog we would be, what it's going to look like. So here we have the student blog and Spark story samples. I'll do a separate or in one of my next emails I'll talk about Spark stories. You can, or maybe I'll do it now, get it over with. Let me give you blog samples first, okay? So I've given 3 of them from last fall. So Abby's Adventures Abroad. Okay. So here's what I'm going to be looking for in your blog setup. Okay. First, that you have it in a good vehicle or template. WordPress here is good. So all of these sites allow you to choose different preset templates. WordPress, for example, calls them themes that would have things like fonts preloaded, colors, how the top banner looks, maybe even allows you to put in some words to make a top banner or automatically. If you're going to have a feature graphic for each article, how many articles. Notice this right here is a Millersville, Maryland. So it's always telling me I live in Millersville, so they're always throwing in things. Like how much of a teaser you have before each article and how people see them. Okay, so when I do want you to give considerable thought in this next week, and if you've already set up your blog, that's fine. So I'm not going to be grading them until after that deadline. So go back, and if you didn't spend much time, just go back this week and spend some more time making it look good, basically, is what I'm looking for. So a couple things I'm looking for. So we live in a age of visual culture, right? So even though this is focusing more on writing, you do need to recognize that if you're doing any kind of journalism or almost any job you have, you need to be able to take decent photos and have the wherewithal to, while you're out and about, to actually take photos that you might use in different assignments, right? So take lots of photos and include lots of photos in all of your blog stories. And also think about how you're putting them in, right? So I like this. This is like this. So this obviously the last one here is the last one she posted. I guess from last fall. This one, to be honest, and I'm not telling you what grade. This is an advertisement here at the bottom. Really doesn't really have that many photos. Granted, exams, as a topic, I'm not sure how that would lend itself. It would be nice to have one photo maybe of the university. So criteria for favorite city here. She has more photos here. Okay, several with nice captions here. At this point, when I grade this, you're only going to have 1 or 2 stories. So I'm not going to be getting into, I'm going to be reading the first story and kind of making sure you're covering your bases in terms of having a good title, covering grammar, having a full-length article. You should have links in your articles, links that make sense based on the topic. So if, let's say, Prague at Christmas time, and maybe she found a good website that talks about, or like a photo site about Prague at Christmas time. Some of these sites allow you to actually do little slideshows, like little slide sorters, which would be great. I'm I'm looking for, I want everyone to have an about page, okay? So you shouldn't have a ton, granted this is a public blog, right? So you shouldn't have tons of information. Like you shouldn't have like your telephone number in there, your address at home. But basic, if you want to put a photo of you, that's great. If not, that's okay. But some just basic information. So if some generic person coming will know, okay, what this travel blog is about, right? So I do want an about page. She chose to do a photos page. Some of them allow you to put a link to archives. That just means older articles. And then also some way that organizes well the articles. So like this, we have like a nice graphic teaser for each one. So it's relatively easy for me as a viewer to come and kind of find older articles. Some of them, okay, older posts there. And a lot of that's, just by design in the theme. And so a lot of it comes into just choosing a good theme that looks nice and displays graphics well and makes it look like a travel blog as opposed to some other kind of website. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of the first blog setup. In part, a lot of it's just like doing it on time. Let's look at another one. Some of these could potentially be deleted. Okay, so Natalie, this is a little bit harder to look at, but still, I mean, you get the idea. This is a travel blog, and each one of these is going to be going to this is very visually, savvy in terms of how it arranges the photos. Some of the photos, and you have to choose good ones. So if it's doing like a really large kind of landscape picture for this, like a feature picture, then choose a good picture for it. If it's a picture of someone's face, it's going to be all distorted and weird looking when it tries to make it the main feature. So something like this is appropriate. And then more close-ups like this are better for smaller format. And all of these blog tools, you can tell it, okay, I want this picture to be side by side with another picture. I want this caption. I want it to be this size. They all give lots of tools. So pay attention to those little details because little details like that are important. All right, nice description here. Okay, lots of photos. So I don't see any links. I'll be a little lenient on links at the beginning, but yeah, links are important because oh, she does have a link. Okay. And it should be don't just send it to Wikipedia's Oktoberfest link. That doesn't work. So this looks like it's something really specific she found at the Telegraph about the Oktoberfest in Germany. Okay, so that's great. Okay, so you can see the difference between this one and the other one, and they're both good in terms of the setup. It doesn't have to have one specific look, but do pay attention to the look and feel of the site. Okay, and then lastly, and this is kind of probably more so for later, I'm giving you the option for at least one of your stories doing an Adobe Spark. And you can just type in Adobe Spark. And it's a new, I wouldn't say a new, but it's a way of doing a narrative storytelling as a one-page website. Okay, so here we have it's a story of a trip she took, right? And as we scroll down, and you have to, in terms of writing it, you can still write it in Microsoft Word or whatever you write and write a full story. But then you take snippets, paragraphs, and put it in, and then and put the photos in and maybe some subtitles too, so that we understand what this is, what these different photos are. And as I scroll down, I get more photos describing and text describing the trip that she went on. So you can tell that it's just a little bit more narrative in terms of the way it puts the photos all together, or you do it yourself in the Adobe Spark tool. And what you do in your blog is you just create a new blog post, and then you say for this story, I decided to use Adobe Spark, maybe put a photo in there, and then a link, and click the link to read the story. Okay, so you're basically sending us to that site. For some of the tools, if you want to go the extra mile, you might be able to go and edit the code. Like click the button on the blog tool for looking at the code and paste the embed code, because I do believe Spark for each page will give you an embed code for putting kind of embedding this page inside of your blog post. You could see if that works, but a link to it is just fine. Okay, so that's just another thing you can do to kind of like do something a little bit different type of storytelling for one or more of your blog posts. Okay, so I've talked a lot. One last thing I want to mention is if there's a confusion or a question, please email me, right? Because, I mean, think about the differences between this class and the face-to-face classes that you're used to having on the Loyola campus. Like, if you weren't sure about something, or you thought like something on the Moodle page was incorrect or confusing, then you would raise your hand and you ask the professor, and the professor would give you an explanation or go into more detail or say, oh, you're right, this is the wrong date, right? So like with the voice threads, a couple of you skipped ahead and went ahead and made them. And if you weren't quite sure if that was right to do that, then just go ahead and email me. And then if it's something that I think is like everyone should know about, a clarification, then on my weekly emails, then I'll make sure I include it. So don't be shy about emailing me. Email is the best way to contact me. We can do like I have FaceTime and Skype, and I can do Zoom video chat meetings. So we can also arrange to do I did that with a few students last semester. Sometimes it's kind of dicey, but I guess if you're in Europe, then probably like a midday, it would be night for you, or early night for you, and midday for me might be the best. But anyway, we can arrange one of those, or just talk over email if you have specific questions or confusion. I will be doing a couple times. I think for the first blog post that you do, when I give you feedback here, it gives me a part where I can tell you, I'll give you actual feedback, like several sentences of this and this and this. So that'll be how I give you feedback on your first blog post. And then I will be sending individually emails to you when I read several of yours, like a little bit more of a critique individually. And then I'll also do a video, one or two throughout the semester, probably one in mid-October and one in mid-November, where I talk about general trends for you to watch. And I might even, I'll pull up a couple of the blog posts and talk about things that really worked on for certain students' articles. Okay, so that's the main way. A couple, like 3 different ways that I'll be giving feedback about the blog writing themselves. Okay, all right, so have a great weekend. Hopefully you'll get some good cultural activities in. Send me emails if you're confused. A last recap. So we're going to change this date. So the voice thread introductions and the first blog posts are due by the 14th, which, and that by default, that means, the blog obviously has to be set up at that point if your first blog post is done. And by the 14th then as well, you need to have, in your discussion forum, like Megan did, it's really slow right now, tell us by the 14th, a week from today, what your blog URL is. Okay, so, and basically on that day or by that weekend, I'll start to actually, I don't know why I'm freezing up here, but it looks like the video is not freezing up. So anyway, those 2 things, or 3 things, by a week from today, the 14th. Don't quit on me. So the blog post or blog being set up, the first blog post on it, and then announcing your blog URL to the group. Again, this will take you 5 seconds to do. And then your group discussion forum, and look for, the group voice thread, and look for them here. So I'm going to go ahead and do group gray right now. So like half an hour from now or later on Friday today, that'll be up. And then the rest of you, who, if you haven't signed up for on the wiki here for a discussion group, do that ASAP. That's the number one thing to do immediately, like today or tomorrow. Sign up for one of these discussion groups. Again, there's like one spot in group green, a couple in group metro, and all of them in group Chesapeake. So sign that up ASAP, and as soon as that has 4 people in it, or the max people, then I will just create the discussion thread link, and it'll go, and it'll say group gray voice thread, and that's all it will say. It'll be a link here. It won't look like these. It'll say group gray voice thread, group green voice thread, and you click on it, and then you can make your first voice thread, like right here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I will on Monday send out a reminder of that you need to do those things by the end of that week, and we'll move on from there. So have a great semester, and I'm looking forward to reading all of your great travel writing.